up on the podium will be Stewart Maschmeyer, and Stewart actually lives in the Bruderheim area, which is just outside of Fort Saskatchewan. He's been farming for about 25 years. He operates a 5,000-acre grain farm and a 2,000-head feedlot. He actually is a heavy-duty mechanic by training, and he's married with 5 children, so he's a very busy person. So Stewart will actually be our first presenter. Our second one would be Jason Keller, and Jason actually is a potato and grain farmer from Carmen, Manitoba, which is located in the Red River Valley, for those of you who are not familiar with that area. Keller Farms has been growing and processing potatoes for about 25 years in rotation with canola, wheat, and oats, corn, and soybeans. Keller Farms has been successful in terms of utilizing VRT for the last 5 years. Our last speaker is Josh Feinberger, and Josh actually was born and raised on a mixed farm in the Claresholm area, south of Calgary here, of course, where he currently farms with his wife and young family. And after high school, Josh obtained a diploma in ag from Lethbridge Community College, and then he worked on some dairy farms in Quebec and Switzerland. So he did a bit of traveling. Currently, he is a partner in their family farm, which they manage about 10,000 acres. And his role in that farm is he looks after the machinery, of course, and takes care of the GPS and data management end of things. And he also is involved with the agronomy and marketing. So we have 3 individuals, Stewart, Jason, and Josh, and I'd like you to give them a warm welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity of being here to share some of the things we've been doing on our farm. As was interesting as the session started, talking about social media and Twitter and Facebook. Although I've been pretty keen on adapting technology into my business on a personal level, I've resisted some of those things. I've never tweeted, but maybe by the end of the day we'll figure it out. And teenage kids keep telling me, "Dad, you got to get on Facebook. You got to get on Facebook." I tell them my fear there is to open an account and find out how few friends I really have. I'm proudly a 4th generation farmer. I grew up on a mixed farm. My dad ran a 100-sow fair-to-finish operation throughout his career, and over time we built up a 2,000-head feedlot and slowly increased the amount of acres that we grew. Precision farming has really come full circle. My great-grandfather was an expert on site-specific farming. He spread manure by hand every day at different spots. He farmed with a horse and a 1-bottom plow, and knew his soil very intimately. And even as equipment grew and expanded, even with a thrashing machine, they would set the thrashing machine up at a different spot around the yard every year so the straw pile wasn't always in the same place. And their livestock wasn't wintered. They pulled wild oats and weeds by hand. But as equipment grew, that all disappeared and everything was done with a blanket operation. And it's exciting times in agriculture to see things come around. The first time I ever heard the phrase precision farming was in the early 90s. I went to a 2-day seminar that Emil Camilliano put on with Alberta Agriculture, and we were looking at aerial photographs of different fields that we had selected. We spent 2 days going through those fields and looking at slope and terrain and topography. And as I left that seminar, I had no idea of knowing that the challenge before me that day would be the same for over 20 years is, what do I do with this information? And that is still one of the things as producers, I think, that, as Dr. Raj had said, the technology for a long time has been ahead of the science. So when yield monitors came into being, and there's many farmers here, I'm sure that have years and years of yield data, and are the same thing. What do you do with that information? And in my opinion, the greatest thing the yield monitor has given us is showed us the variability in our fields, and not just fields that we knew the bottom end of that field always produces better than the hill, but every single swath has amazing variability from one end of the field to the other. And those were things that we didn't know before. As we looked at that swath, knocked it down, you knew there's got a little heavier, a little lighter, but when you watch a yield monitor drop down to 20 in the teens and up to 90 and 100, and so in my opinion, the yield monitor has that's the most effective tool is to show us that variability. The problem with yield monitors is they don't tell us why. Yield response is, so many variabilities, whether it's the pH in the soil, the salinity that's tying up nutrients, fertility, organic matter, weed and disease pressure. Most importantly, the things we have no control over, the rainfall and the temperature. So 3 years ago, I bought a new drill capable of variable rate technology. I was very excited to embrace new times. And although I really liked the drill the first 2 years, I never turned a variable rate on because I didn't know what to do with it. So I enlisted the help of Agri-Trend and Doug McKay, and we started looking at fields to set up a variable rate program. And we took 1,000 acres out of our 5,000 acre farm, so we didn't want to just do a quarter or two and maybe pick the wrong piece that doesn't respond, and we didn't want to do it all and go broke trying. So we took 1,000 acres, and we used 10 years of satellite imagery. We had hired aircraft to do some near-infrared technology as well, and use those maps together with my own knowledge of the fields, and set up our zones, and I was pretty comfortable, but I still have trouble with the zone selection to some degree. And but we did create a prescription and went at it. And we had a few problems, first year, technology. We were variating all the fertilizers. I use a high pressure hydrous system. And we had parts of the prescription that anytime it called for a different rate, it very quickly responded. But we had places where we were trying to put really low rates on. And then the rates were kind of all over the place, and we figured out that the high pressure system we were using with the vane pump would actually shut off, calling for such a low level, and the anhydrous was bypassing the system. And so for this year, we've changed our anhydrous system to a full bypass, where we'll set our rate from the pump for our maximum prescription, maybe 140, 50 pounds, and anything less than that we divert back to the tank. So it'll give us instantaneous change. As well, we can be very specific at very low rates or very high rates as to how much we put on. It was a good year trying out. I was nervous at some of the, I'd never put on such low rates of N before, and a lot of my land was close to the highway, and I had some grave concerns of what it might look like when we were done, but I was very pleased that very good maturity, our yield monitors showed we had a pretty consistent crop. I still wasn't convinced though that we had our zones correct. And zone selection is the fundamental building block of any variable rate technology. It really is the foundation. And so no different than building a house if you don't have a strong foundation to build on the rest of the program will crumble. So last winter I was at an Agri-Trend seminar, and one of the speakers there was talking about a Varus machine, which I'd never heard of before. And Varus machine is a simple contraption, 6 volters on it, and it directs DC voltage into the ground and then takes a reading back at different levels as it comes back. And what you end up with when you're done is a really good soil map, because the different electroconductivity of the soil changes throughout your field. And so we ended up with a really good base then to take the zones that we had and adjust them, specifically the soil type. So the other thing that we've done is this coming year for our prescriptions, our land is all generally pretty good soil on number 1, number 2 soil. And we've set our prescriptions to try to obtain the same yield on all our zones. So for canola, we're trying to target 60 bushels across, soil sample them separately, and then fertilize them accordingly. Even on a heavily manured land, I've got 2/4 of land. My yard sits in the middle, and having a honey wagon for 30 years spreading manure close to the yard, and all the manure from our feedlot that got spread there over the years. And I decided we should map those ones as well. And my agronomist questioned whether we should be doing that, because when we do random soil tests, our nutrient level is off the page. She says throw a little sulfur in and see. But even on those fields, we've got variability of requirements, you know, for nitrogen from as low as 28 pounds up to 108 in our high zone. And the other quarter is from 0 nitrogen requirements all the way to 70. And even the phosphate and potassium from 0 to 25 to 30. So even on a field that we thought we'd loaded the nutrients up, we still see a variable difference classified by soil type. So we've also taken one field and called it the Field of Dreams. It was my dad's favorite quarter. It always produced the best crops that he had on it, and that we're pushing the envelope. We're going for 80 bushels of canola, and, you know, maybe higher, and we'll find out the economic curve, I guess, or how far you can push it, and then you no longer see an economic response. Some of the other things we're trying. Last year, I invested in an RTK system. The reason I went with that, primarily I wanted to get into inter-row seeding, so I wanted to be able to have sub-inch accurate rows, cut my cereal stubble a little higher, and then seed my canola in between. The idea of keeping the stubble a little higher, catch a little more snow, a little less disturbance, protect the canola plants from the wind. Also, to some degree, that would give me some real modified control traffic. That before auto steer, well, my dad always seeded everything north and south, because we swapped everything east and west, and it made a good stubble to support the crop. When I bought a Concord air drill, fields were too rough to do that in, so I had to seed everything east and west and bale. Every operation had to be done the same direction. But before GPS guidance, you know, I'd overlap 2-3 feet with my drill and push my nutrient levels, and the canola I didn't notice near as much, but maybe a little bit of blooming in the overlap, but my cereals would lodge every 40 feet where I overlapped consistently every year. And when you pull into a field, you start exactly the same way, and you start with the straightest edge. So I went to a system of seeding north and south to my cereals and east and west for my canola so I could swath. And when we went to a guidance system, we were able to change everything back, you know, to east and west. Have, you know, no overlap for a sprayer, no overlap for, you know, for our nutrients. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Questions or go on to the panel?
We'll just wait until the end, yeah, sure.